But we'll talk more about that because we got Andy Staples here, and we appreciate him jumping on with us here on an early call as we get going this on this MLK Day on this Monday. Andy, Hello. Good morning. How are you?
Morning.
Obviously, the huge news over the weekend that busted on Friday in college football was Kalen DeBoer leaving Washington and being named head coach at Alabama. What was your thoughts of that news once it went official?
I thought it was a very good hire. I mean, this is a guy who's won everywhere he's been. It's 25-3 at Washington. The only question you have is whether he's going to be able to recruit in the South. But I covered Florida when Urban Meyer got hired, and it's interesting because you look at the staffing situation of who Kalen DeBoer is bringing. It's almost exactly matches like most of the offensive staff coming with him. Defensive staff's going to be a little bit mixed up, and you're going to have some guys that maybe have been in this area, and it looks like Robert Gillespie's going to stay as the running backs coach. So I think they have the right idea. Now, it's a lot harder in the SEC now than when Urban Meyer got to Florida, and I think that's the part you got to consider. You got Brian Kelly. You got to deal with Sark at Texas. You got to deal with Texas A&M and all the money they have and the resources they have. And then Auburn, is going to try to take advantage of this. And it'll be interesting because it's funny because last week it didn't seem like Auburn was taking advantage of the situation. It seemed like they were in their own, kind of chaos. So I'll be interested to see how it goes. But I don't think it's funny. I was talking to our Alabama guy, Tim Watts from Bama Online, all week last week, and he's like, yeah, there's nobody that they're going to like. They just want Nick Saban to change his mind and come back, because Alabama fans were like, well, I don't want Mike Norvell, I don't want Kalen DeBoer, I don't want to, like, guys, you're going to be okay. They're all good. None of them are going to be Nick Saban, right, but it's going to be okay.
Andy, a little bit about Nick Saban. What, how did the news hit you? Did it surprise you that ultimately he retired?
He's not dead, by the way. He just retired.
Yeah, I was surprised because, I thought he seemed to be enjoying last season. And now when you look back, knowing what happened, you think, okay, maybe he was savoring last season. But it felt like he liked the team. He liked the way that they kind of grew as the season went along, and that maybe it was energizing him for future years. But you listen to what he said to Reese Davis, and he was getting tired, he said. And it was a lot more work and a lot tougher. So I just we kept trying to read into all the smiling and the joking and all that. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he's just enjoying himself a little more. But maybe it turns out now he was kind of savoring, hey, this might be it. And if it is, that's great. So I was pretty shocked. I thought, okay, what is he going to do all day? Because he can go to ESPN and talk to them and go on game day, replace Lee Corso, or however you want to do it. But I don't know how he fills the rest of the hours in the day. And we'll see. Maybe he drives Miss Terry crazy. But he also is going to have that office at Alabama, so he'll have some input there. I'm guessing Kalen DeBoer will take some advice from Nick Saban. I also think Nick Saban's smart enough to read the room that he's not going to try to be in control of things. He's not going to, with DeBoer there, he's not going to say, okay, you should do this and this and this. Probably giving advice when it's asked rather than just giving it freely.
Perception is that DeBoer was like the third guy on the list. It seems like they went after Lanning, they went after Norvell, they may have even gone after Sark. Do you believe that? Do you believe it maybe took them that long to find their guy?
We're never going to know.
Yeah,
we're never going to know. Because every Florida State fan is going to say that Mike Norvell turned down Alabama, and maybe he did. Sark, I would assume they called him. With Nick Saban not coaching Alabama, he has a better job at Texas. Yeah. So why would he go to Alabama? The Lanning thing's a little bit different story because he's a different cat. I mean, he shut it down quick with A&M. He shut it down quick with Alabama, and I think he might just like it out there. I mean, we really do. And I know he's got that huge buyout, but that wasn't going to be a problem for Alabama because, like these other schools, they're firing somebody and paying a huge buyout to the coach, and then you would have to pay a big buyout to get Dan Lanning. I don't necessarily think that mattered for Alabama. They didn't have to fire anybody. Nick Saban was retiring, so they could have afforded it. But I just think that the quickness with which that got shut down suggests that Lanning might just be all right with where he is.
Would you make of Brian Kelly firing his defensive staff and replacing with Blake Baker at DC, and then ultimately poaching Bo Davis from Texas's staff and bringing him back to LSU where he played?
Bo Davis thing's huge. I mean, he's probably the best defensive line coach in the country. You look at what he's done with those guys at Texas the last few years. Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy were two of the bigger reasons why they made the playoff. And like Tavondre Sweat's a good example of he wasn't even everybody says, oh, Texas signs all these 5-stars and don't do anything with them. That's true of the Tom Herman and Charlie Strong eras, but it does seem like Sark's staff is developing a lot better. Bo Davis was a big reason for that. And like Tavondre Sweat was a 3-star or high 3-star, low 4-star recruit. He was not kind of the typical Texas recruit. And Bo Davis did a great job with him. And he's probably going to be a 1st or 2nd round draft pick now. So that's a big one. Firing the whole defensive staff. Well, their defense was terrible. So I'm not surprised by that. It was expensive because they did just give Matt House the extension. The Blake Baker thing's interesting me. He did a great job at Missouri last year, but I do think it is very college football that a guy you fired as a position coach a couple of years ago is coming back as one of the highest paid coordinators in America now.
That's right. What do you make of the power of the SEC? How did it shift? How did the power of college football shift last week with all of the moves that were made, and potentially another move that could be made with Jim Harbaugh?
It's interesting. So the SEC it's Kirby's right now, and somebody's got to go take it from him, because the only guy who could deal with him so far that we've seen is Nick Saban. And the fact that Kalen DeBoer's welcome to the SEC moment was, hey, congratulations on the Alabama job. We're taking the defensive back coach that you probably really wanted to keep. And oh, by the way, there may be some players that follow him. I think that was a big move by Kirby. That was sort of just saying, hey, look, this is my place now, and you need to come deal with me. But I do think it changes, because think about how many times we just said, if Alabama had a different coach, if Nick Saban retired, who could really step up? Could Texas A&M finally get traction? Would LSU be more consistent? Would Auburn get better? And I think the answer to all of that is if Kalen DeBoer can't be as dominant as Nick Saban, and I don't think we should expect anyone to be as dominant as Nick Saban, then it does make life easier for all those other teams. Plus, you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in that also will want to be part of this. So right now, it is Kirby's league and everybody's living in it. But I think we've seen that there's plenty of programs that are ready to challenge, and we'll see if Kirby can be as dominant as Nick was. And now the rest of it, as for the Harbaugh piece of it, going to be really interesting today. The reports always meet with the Chargers today. We'll see if there are any other NFL teams involved. The Raiders sound like one that might be want to talk to him too. And I think with Michigan, if he leaves, I think they should promote Sharon Moore. I think they've got a good situation there, and I think if they promote Sharon Moore, they will keep that situation going. But we'll see what happens.
Would you make a Jedd Fisch replacing DeBoer in Washington?
That was a good hire. He did a great job in Arizona. I mean, he took over one of the worst roster situations you've ever seen when Kevin Sumlin got fired, and very quickly turned it around. And not just through the portal. He had some good high school recruiting classes. His class of 2022 was pretty much the backbone of that team that went to the Alamo Bowl this year and won 10 games. And so I think that was a good choice. And at Washington, there is going to have to be a roster revamp. It's not just that they're losing good players from the team that played for the national title. When DeBoer left, they were pouring into the portal. So he's going to have to do that. Now, it will not be as dire as the situation in Arizona, but it won't be the easiest thing in the world. And, oh, by the way, you're going into the Big Ten. But I do think that's a good hire for that particular situation. And, we'll see if he stays. Jedd has never stayed anywhere long. Yeah. But I know there's some heartbroken people in Gainesville, because I think the hope for a lot of people was that Jedd, who is a Florida grad, would eventually replace Billy Napier. But that is not in the cards, because my guess is the buyout at Washington is going to be pretty enormous, and he probably isn't leaving after a year.
How hot is that seat for Napier? Last one, I'll get you out of here. I mean, is it
what's hotter than fire?
Yeah, right.
I mean, They were 5-7 last year, and their schedule is brutal, and they don't seem to have gotten any better in the offseason. And It just doesn't look good. Their portal situation in this window was a net negative. They get DJ Lagway. They signed him, the quarterback from Texas, who should be very good, but he's not even supposed to play next year. I mean, Graham Mertz is supposed to start next year, and Lagway's supposed to work his way in. But I don't see it unless something dramatic changes. I just don't see it.